Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you. The MSME entrepreneur tonight on the show to the influencer conversations. First up, I'm going to be speaking with Payswiff, and later on, Shuttle, which is disrupting the bus and the public transport space. Over the course of this year, we've been bringing you the story of multiple fintech companies that are disrupting what's really happening when it comes to financing and how finance is being accessed and done. One such company that I'm in conversation tonight is Payswiff. I caught up with the company to understand how the Indian market is changing when it comes to finance and also what some of their own plans are. Take a listen. Thanks very much for joining us here on the show. Let's start by talking about Payswiff. You know, the idea really behind that, a lot of companies are of course being set up in the fintech space, but yours is a slightly different model. You have a unique and interesting business proposition. Let's start this interview by talking about that.
Thanks, Sunanda. I'm happy to be part of this show. When it comes to Payswiff, if I go back in the year 2004, the first team of Payswiff is the founding team of a payment gateway company by name EBS, where we have been working together on the payment space for the last 10 years. We got exposure to the global markets. We got an idea on how a digital payment disruption can really evolve. And we were of an opinion that India is ready for that disruption, and we want to be there in the market when that happens. So that's why Payswiff has born.
Let's talk about the Payswiff app. I'm really trying to understand whether India is the best market for you to have an app in the fintech space. That's because when we're talking about India, we're also talking about tier 3, tier 4, etc., which is then going to contribute into this entire fintech revolution. So how really do you see this panning out, and how is this working out for you?
See, when it comes to an app, or when it comes to any new disruption or any service, right, which market it addresses defines what are all the qualities that particular service needs. When it comes to a B2C solution or a C2C solution, a user experience, how simple the app is, how easy it is for them to download, and how small the file size is, all those things matters a lot. But when it comes to a B2B service, that service really need very different attributes for that service to get evolved. For an example, on a B2B service, when a merchant accepts payments, the first quality on the service, what he prefers is the security, the trust attached to that service. When it comes to our service, if you see, right, tier 3, tier 4 markets, being India a cost-driven market, a cost-conscious market, we could offer a service which is at 25% of the cost prior to what it is being offered to them through a regular channel. And we could establish that sense of trust to them by getting certified, by getting audited by bigger branch, by following all the stipulated guidelines which is being there, and which we could establish that. So our merchants really doesn't find it uncomfortable for them to adapt it. And demonetization has also helped them to realize that it is more or less a kind of an essential thing for them than it being an extra gadget. And that has also added more fuel to the adaptation process of it. We have close to 80,000 merchants who is using our services, and they've been very comfortable in using it, and we have merchants who transact more than 100 transactions a day with us. And that's the way the adaptation is happening.
I want to talk about demonetization. I know it's been a while since we've seen demonetization, but that has been the biggest talking point in the fintech space. A lot of fintech companies, particularly the larger ones, have said they've seen their business growing by nearly 50 to 100% thanks to demonetization. What's been the impact on your business? And I have, a second part to this as well, to try and understand whether you think that demonetization was perhaps rushed through, because a lot of experts speaking to us said that if the government had allowed market forces to come into play, then digital transactions would have become the norm without having something surgical like a demonetization. Your opinion on that?
Before me coming into specifically how it has an impact on Payswiff, I very genuinely believe it was a kind of surge effect which has been given to the entire population or the entire economy, because prior to that, people were not very sure about adapting to the digital mode of payments, because neither they could realize how convenient it is or how cost effective it is or how trackable it is. Demonetization has helped the general public, most importantly, to realize adaptation of digital payments is not a choice anymore. It is kind of
okay.
if not compulsion, it is kind of a way of life. There are a lot of people, there are a lot of activations in terms of acceptance, in terms of people adopting digital payments, which has happened by the time of demonetization. As I told you earlier, it is a surge effect which has a positive impact as well as a negative impact. The moment you add extra voltage to the system, immediately it glows high and then it needs to get stabilized. So our industry has also witnessed the after effects of such a surge effect. And the advantage what is happening today is, after the normalization, there is a steady growth, there is a steady activations which is happening on tier 2, tier 3 markets, and there is a steady adaptation which is happening on all the merchants who has been started using a digital payment as a channel of accepting payments on their systems. So rather than me calling it as 50% or 100% growth, this enabled the population, this enabled merchants, this enabled the stakeholders in the transaction processing side to realize that it is need of the hour, and if we don't know how to do it, then it is time for us to know and it is time for us to adapt it. That has helped all the fintech companies, all the banks to a very greater extent, or else it would have costed millions or billions of dollars for us to educate people in making them understanding the importance of accepting it, be it the cost of fund getting lower, be it the pilferages almost getting nullified, be it the ability for them to reconcile. It was not typically possible for companies like us, or even companies at a much bigger level, to do that. That demonetization did that for the whole economy, and yes, all the fintech companies are partial beneficiaries to that.
Reports suggest you're in the market to raise nearly 260 crores. Can you comment on that? What perhaps are you looking at raising that money for?
See, we have been growing at the rate of 300% year over year for the last 3 years, Sunanda, and we managed to remain profitable for the second year in a row, completing this March. I'm sure you're also aware of the fact that we have been expanding rapidly in international markets, with having our presence and being live in markets like Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, in Southeast Asia, and apart from that, we have opened our services in Dubai, and we are going live in Saudi Arabia, and we also have a very strong presence in CIS markets, which is in Russia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, and also we have been servicing in Eastern European markets, Romania and Georgia. So typically, when it comes to our Indian market, we have been very stable and we have been growing at 300%. Whatever the fund we will be raising, predominantly that will be used in opening tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets in India, in getting them next generation hardware as well as solutions which enables them to know their business first better, to handle their business more effectively, and which also enables them to accept payments, reconcile, file their taxes, given the fact that we are also the GSP who can process the tax calculations for GST, and we are the only GSP who has a payment background, which enables us to integrate all the solutions closely. We'll be investing money in India for this purpose, and we'll be opening overseas markets as we plan to leverage our technology and our compliance abilities in India in other markets.
Prabhu, we started this conversation by talking about how, there are so many companies that are now coming into the fintech space. It's definitely getting more competitive. It's definitely getting more crowded and fragmented. So how do you see yourself having that USP, which is different from the others? And also, through the course of this answer, maybe talk to our MSMEs about how they can build a USP for themselves, no matter what business they're in.
The market is very huge. If we try comparing ourselves with our neighbors in terms of population size, if we try comparing it with China, we are talking about close to 60 million devices which is live, compared to India, which is 2.3 million devices which is live and activated. We have a long way to go. There are two scenarios here. One is a merchant who is self-sufficient, a merchant who has access to multiple banks, multiple service providers like us, who is looking for an innovation, who is looking for a specific value additions associated to the service, versus 80% of the market which is unopened, who is yet to start accepting digital payments on the system. And when we deploy these solutions, we have a two-pronged approach. One is, rather than be complicating the merchant with huge amount of innovations and huge amount of value additions, we very strongly believe when a person get activated first time for the digital payment solution, it has to be very fairly simple, regionalized, localized the entire solution in the regional languages. A guy who is sitting in Guntur, for an example, can understand our solution, can use our solution in Telugu. A guy who is sitting in Trichy in Tamil Nadu can use our solution in Tamil. So the entire solution is available in a regional language which he can understand first. That is the first differentiator what we bought in. Second thing is, unless and otherwise, the support systems what is available today, we have further regionalized that. People can speak in their own language to understand what it is. And third thing is, we realize that we cannot restrict a merchant with typical some payment options, because in the last 3 years we have witnessed close to 100 different payment options with 15 different form factors which has been introduced, which each and every form factor has got their own market share in this market. So we decided we should be an omni-channel payment service provider where we can go and tell the merchant, tomorrow there might be another 20 different payment options which is going to come. You don't need to worry about it. I am one single point for you in you getting every payment options enabled for you.
Prabhu, thank you very much for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. It's time for a break. When we come back on the other side, Shuttle is in focus. What are they doing? We'll tell you when we come back. To stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight in focus on the influencers is Gurugram-based Shuttle. The app-based public transport system here in India may be very nascent, but there's clearly enough innovation and there's clearly enough money to be made and room for growth. While some, like Ola, may have been forced to shut their bus app services, I caught up with Shuttle, which reports are suggesting is raising close to $11 million from the likes of Amazon to understand how they're doing things differently and what the market here in India is looking like for entrepreneurs like themselves. Take a listen. Amit, thanks very much for taking the time out to speak with us here tonight on the Leaders of Tomorrow. My first question for you is really how the face of public transport in India has changed. The past 2 or 3 years has seen a dramatic change. So I just want to kick this conversation off by understanding, some of the biggest changes you're seeing and also how you're viewing this changing landscape.
Okay, so in the last few years, with what we have gone through, particularly in the city of Delhi, I think our realization for the problems of pollution and congestion has increased. We now know that we need less cars on the road. We know the gravity of the situation. And somewhere the appreciation for what we bring to the table by being a credible alternative to cars, that appreciation has gone up. It has gone up amongst our consumers, amongst policymakers, and actually in media also. So this whole narrative around a carbon efficient solution has helped our business, and we see consumers championing the cause, talking to their colleagues and helping them on board to our platform. So that has been the key change that we have seen in the last few years.
We're talking at a time when the Delhi government, amongst other state governments, is talking about bringing down the number of private vehicles on roads and therefore bringing down pollution. Are you working with any state governments, anything that you can talk to us about, and also the broader move in terms of bringing down the number of private vehicles that we're seeing on roads?
The short answer is that we are not working with any of the state governments in PPP or a different model. What we do for sure is we try to evangelize bus as a solution because buses, we believe, are the most space efficient, cost efficient, and actually carbon efficient way of moving people within cities. So when it comes to forums, events around smart cities or urban mobility, we try to evangelize this solution. So it takes a while to appreciate technology and what technology can do. We're seeing that appreciation coming. So hopefully things will change in the future, and we'll be working more closely with state governments, and in different cities.
Okay, and I'm sort of just thinking out aloud, Amit. Do you think there's maybe the opportunity for companies like yourself to work with the government on a PPP model when it comes to public transport, and also maybe your thoughts really on how you as a company can maybe work with corporates and offer your services there?
Yes, both are actually huge in their own ways. Talking about corporates, we already do that. We work with a lot of corporates who want to kind of improve the productivity of their people, because they come to office fresh. They can use the time in the shuttles to their advantage. So a lot of corporates work with us. Talking about PPP, I think we need to come up with the right framework. Today, it's more about giving buses, running buses, and less about actually technology, how to use technology such that we are able to bring efficiency and reliability in our services. So I think that we have not really understood well how to come up with that solution.
Very often when we talk to players like, say, yourself, the perception is that the product or the service that you're offering is costly when compared to the other alternatives that exist in the market, particularly because players like you would offer, say, an AC option versus a non-AC option. Is that perception correct? How are you tackling that perception? And also, what do you have to say really on the pricing and sort of the cost difference really, Amit?
So I don't think that's a dominant perception. AC is not really a luxury anymore in the kind of weather we live and in the times that we live. We charge roughly around 2 rupees a kilometer, which is very competitive. Yes, it does happen that sometimes people do not factor in their last mile cost, their first mile cost. They definitely do not factor in the parking charges. They don't factor in the fact that they are actually wasting their time by kind of either standing or driving. I think those things get missed out. But once people use our service, they realize very quickly that this is real value for money. So we are not really dealing with that perception of that we being expensive. In fact, buses give you a perception that they are going to be economical.
I want to talk about funding. You received funding and raised funding from Sequoia and Lightspeed, amongst others. What was that experience like? And also, do you think it's perhaps now becoming easier with more players entering the logistics and transport space for entrepreneurs like yourself to raise funding in this industry?
So our experience has been kind of very, very encouraging. We have a board. We have been actually blessed with a very supportive and constructive board. They do engage with us, but they give us a long rope to take the right decisions, and they back our decisions. So for any fellow entrepreneur, I would really recommend our investors, if they have the choice, to take capital from them. On your other question around has the funding environment improved for this space, I think what we are seeing is it is coming from top down. The larger players have been able to kind of turn the corner around. They have been able to raise very large size checks, and it's getting kind of to the mid segment today, and I think it will keep going to smaller companies also. So I would assume that I would believe that in the next 18 months we would see even much younger startups raising capital in the space. So I'm positive.
Do you think it's possible to replicate global models here in India, Amit, when it comes to offering transport solutions and products? You were talking about Uber a short while earlier. Do you think it's easy to just pick up these global models and replicate it here in India? Or do you think that perhaps in India, the challenges are so different that the solutions we have to offer here have to be different?
So yes and no. Obviously, if there's a successful global model, we should study it. We should see if that can be adopted. That's how best practices, kind of come through. But that is step 2 for me. Step 1 would be to first really understand who we are, what our problems are, what are our constraints, and then see, if those solutions can apply into this kind of a construct. Force fitting really works in my view. We need to understand that a solution designed for a country with more than 80% vehicle penetration may not be exactly deployable in a country with around 5% vehicle penetration. So we need to put a thought on those things maybe.
Okay, let's talk about regulation. And since we were talking about Uber, I know that not too long ago the government had a bit of a back and forth when it came to certain services in the transport space about whether they were technology companies or transport service providers. My broader question though is on the nature of regulation when it comes to the transport industry in India. Do you think perhaps there exists now regulation to subsume all future forms of innovation that may come about in this industry? Are you happy with what you're seeing? Any changes there in the regulation as far as the transport space is concerned you want to see?
All right. To give you context, see what are we doing? We are actually trying to give people a credible alternative to commute. In the process, we are reducing congestion, we are reducing pollution, we are giving them something which is safer and maybe possibly increase their productivity. I would be surprised if government doesn't want that. This is exactly what the government also wants. And in the process, the cars are we are getting lesser, thousands of less cars are there on the roads every day now. So I think the end goal is same, the mission is the same. We just need to understand and find a way to work together. So as far as the regulation is concerned, I don't see much of a challenge as far as our particular space is concerned. Yes, if there's a wish list, I would like to kind of talk about the taxation part, the passenger tax and related taxes. I think the kind of taxes we have on cabs, and I'm talking about per seat tax. Today it is per seat tax on buses is higher than that on cabs, which is a distortion which needs to be corrected.
Very quickly, what's been the impact of GST for you?
So the way I see GST is, so there's been no significant positive or negative impact on us in the short term. But in the long term, what I see GST as, it creates kind of a framework wherein companies which are paying taxes, if anyone in the value chain starts paying tax, who was not paying tax earlier, it is good for organized players. So in that sense, it is positive for us. But it will take a while to kind of show up in our financials.
All right, our last question, Amit, then what else is on the cards for you? You were talking earlier about working with state governments. Anything else that you perhaps can leave our viewers with? So
actually, if I talk about a focus, it is largely to work on two key dimensions of our business, which are efficiency and reliability. So what I mean is operational efficiency and service reliability. Yeah, it may sound boring and may not be even newsworthy, but actually if we can keep doing better on these, we have come a long way, but there's a long way to go forward. If we can keep doing that, this is what will make Shuttle possibly the largest and the most loved mobility solution. So that's what we are currently focused on.
Amit Singh, thank you very much for speaking with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. All right, that's our show tonight. If you have any companies that you think might be influencers and might interest us, here's how you let us know. leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com is our email ID. On social media, tweet at me at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now, which is our official Twitter handle. You can also find us on Times Influence on Twitter, or leave your comments for us on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.